Lesson 3, accelerated learning. So the benefits, well, if you're going to learn faster, you're going to save a lot of time and you're actually going to learn better. The kind of motivation and inspiration you get from accelerating your learning tends to improve the depth, the memory, the absorption, and the usefulness to you of that knowledge over time. So we're now entering the first letter of the ATAG model, the model on which this course is based. So we're going to be looking at acquiring or absorbing knowledge. So how do you accelerate learning? Well, you break down to essences. So whatever it is you want to learn, there are certain essential facts or ideas or skills and techniques that build up to that skill. So you want to break down the skill to its essential components and then learn those thoroughly, build back up again later. So let's explain in more detail. Let's say you're studying strategy, strategic management of business. Well, one of the essences of strategy is to understand the distinctive strengths of an organization. What is the organization particularly good at? And how to apply those to a market opportunity. So about 80% of all work in strategic management is essentially that. How is the organization distinctively good? And how is that strength best applied to a market opportunity? So when you're studying strategic management, there's about 250 different models. There are many hundreds of theories you can absorb. But for practical strategy, what I've just described is the essence. So you want to understand and use and apply that idea first and best. Then all the other details can follow later. Similarly, if you're studying boxing, the martial art of boxing, well, if you're an absolute beginner, it's about stance and hand position, it's about footwork, and then you might want to work on a jab. Now, again, there are many arts to boxing. There's ringcraft and all sorts of ability to read the opponent, diagnose their weaknesses and exploit them and so on. But as a beginner, it's stance, it's basic footwork, and you might want to work on a jab. Those are the skills that will get you started in boxing. Now, if you're learning a foreign language such as Spanish, well, you can learn the common words. Something like 100 words is the 50% of any language. 50% of all that's spoken is just 100 words. You can learn those common words: please, thank you, hello, goodbye, and so on. And then, of course, there are the essential verbs, and often the most important verbs to be and to have, and a few others, are irregular. So you want to sit down, study those, learn those, and then start to explore how the past, present, future conditional tenses work around the core verbs. So again, by the time you've acquired between, say, 1,000 and 3,000 words of vocabulary, you can speak at a basic conversational level. You can understand most things you'd read and hear. So that might be the essence of a foreign language. So one of the ideas behind essences is called the 80-20 or Pareto's rule, and it simply states that 80% of the outputs come from 20% of the inputs. So, for example, if you have a business, 80% of the profits probably come from 20% of your products and services or 20% of your customers. You're probably wearing 20% of the clothes in your wardrobe 80% of the time, and so on. So this is a really important idea, because if you're learning a skill, what is the crucial 20% of the knowledge or the techniques that provide 80% of the benefits? So those are the things you want to focus on. And of course, you then want to look at teaching, using, writing down. So for example, if you're learning Spanish, you might want to teach someone else the basics. You might want to have a little chat in Spanish. You might want to write in Spanish. And that will allow you to reinforce that crucial 20% to get 80% of the benefits. When you have distilled the essences of a skill, you then want to look at reintegrating those essences into the full practice. So, for example, if you've learned the essence of strategy, you might want to help run or create a small business and start to see how the essences work with the entire picture, how the detail works with a holistic view. If you learn boxing, you want to try some sparring. If you're learning Spanish, you want to try some conversation in Spanish. You'll then start to understand how that crucial 20%, that essence, can work with the whole picture, and you'll begin to get more rounded in your skills. So exercise 3.1, take some knowledge that you need. For example, it might be a skill, something practical, or it might be purely conceptual about learning ideas. Break it down to the essences. Use the 80-20 rule and think what 20% of this is the most crucial. What's the 20% that gives 80% of the benefits, or 80% of the end results, the outcomes, if you like, that you're seeking. You then, having broken down to those essences, you want to practice them, and then you want to reintegrate by trying the entire task in its holistic form. Now, part 4 of exercise 3.1 says reflect on the process. What went well? What was particularly challenging? And how could you improve in the future? You're going to see this question quite regularly throughout this course, and the reason is simple. Learners who reflect on the learning process tend to learn better. I'll say that again. If you can learn something, reflect on it, think about how it went for you, what went well, what went badly, how you can improve in the future, you will tend to learn better. You'll memorize more, and you'll tend to be more effective, faster and deeper with your learning. So it's well worth reflecting on what you're doing as you go through the course. Lesson 3 summary. Do you understand that accelerated learning of a new skill or knowledge can be reduced to 3 simple steps? So you're going to break down to the core skills, you're going to practice those core skills, so you're then going to reintegrate with the entire skill or knowledge. You can use the Pareto's rule or 80-20 rule to determine what you would most like to focus on. In the next lesson, we look at speed reading.